That's no move.
Alright, so this time on Nostalgia Maker, I'll be restoring some hand planes. As you can see, I've collected some junk planes over the years in hopes of restoring some. I love hand planes, especially when they're tuned up just right. I really think that they're the gateway hand tool of woodworking. Once you buy an old hand plane, there's no stopping what comes next, which is buying more stuff that ends up gathering dust. But not me. Well, not anymore. I'm changing my ways. I'm sifting through this pile to find any doubles. I know I don't need two of any one type, and so the extra planes I do find will be going to a good friend of mine. He's been getting into woodworking, and last time I talked to him, he showed me a block plane he got from Home Depot. Well, I could not abide that. I'm hoping that these restored planes set him on the right track on an addictive, money pit, anguish-inducing hobby. Well, as long as he doesn't turn to posting videos on YouTube, I think he'll be alright. Anyways, turns out I found a number 1 block plane and a number 3 smoothing plane and a number 5 hand plane, which, funny enough, seemed like the perfect starter package, honestly. Now, as you see here, first thing I do is disassemble them all for a good cleaning. It's really important prior to paint or rust removal to clear off as much junk as possible. It just lets all the rust removal and paint removal products to work as well as possible. Now, there's not much paint on these, but as you can see, I use some stripper and let that sit for a while, wrapped in cellophane. Nice. Paint's lifting off fairly well. I hate using stripper. It's caustic and goopy and just messy. I find working the paint off with a wire attachment while the stripper is still wet works best. Of course, to avoid splatter, it's good to do all this in a large container as you see here. Now that I've worked that stripper into the nooks and crannies, I'm going to use very hot water to clear off all this gunk. Hot water because it cuts through the gunk easier and because it'll evaporate faster, lessening the chance of surface rust developing immediately. Now, all of this is in preparation for the MVP of restorations, and that is Evaporust. I've been using this stuff for years before it was really popular on YouTube. It works much better and faster than vinegar. Yes, it does. That is not a controversial statement. Plus, you can use Evaporust over and over again. So I let this sit for a day or so. You don't have to go that long, but I do. And it all comes out looking great. Not a speck of rust. I rinse off the pieces and coat them in some good old ballistol. Oh yeah, good stuff. Now you may be wondering, why assemble? Is restoration done? Well, no, but the thing I want to do is lap the bottom of these planes. To do that properly, you need to assemble the planes as if you're going to use them. Having everything put together can put different stresses on the base of the plane. And if I'm going to get these planes dead flat while in use, then I need to put them together to do that. To lap these planes, I'll be using some wet and dry sandpaper on this cut-off countertop marble. I find this contact glue works really well. It's not a pain to change out the paper as long as you spray a super thin layer, like almost nothing. That's the key. I just need the paper to stay still. a bit of water, and I'm starting out aggressive. This is like 80 grit wet and dry sandpaper. And with just a few passes, we can see the trouble areas on this bench plane. The toe and heel have some low areas, which in some of these really old planes, you're never going to get those areas completely flat. The most important part though is the mouth. I see there's a small spot that will definitely need some work. I'm going to put some marker on the sole to keep track of the progress, and I'll work on the sides as well as I work up through the grits. Looking better. Still see a low spot there at the mouth, and of course the heel and toe still show some marker. More passes. This is a lot of work. I think I worked these up to like 180 grit. Wow, much better. Mouth looking great, and the sides looking pretty too. On to the smoothing plane. Whoa, this one needed a lot of work. That spot under the mouth is not good. Even though the heel and toe don't have to be perfect, they're pretty bad. And after a lot of work, you know, not bad at all. Honestly, this is going to end up being a perfectly serviceable plane. On to the block plane. And wow, well, that didn't take too long at all. Came out almost perfect. Okay, next thing I want to do is disassemble these planes again and get to the long task of wire brushing everything. That was a sneeze, obviously. You know, even though it takes a while, it's good to wire brush everything. Just gets it all nice and clean, free of residual rust, and whoa, hey, oh nice. Well, I guess I forgot about movie magic. It's really a time saver. Looking good, everything shiny. You know, I think it'd be cool to leave a plain bare metal like this, but maintenance would be a pain, so time for paint. Which means I'll pick up the bodies and the frogs and the lever caps. The most important part about painting is the prep, so I'll use some denatured alcohol to remove any oil, and I'll also take time while I'm here to clean all the screw holes out with Q-tips. Time for tape. Definitely the best tape jobs on YouTube. As always, I use Rust-Oleum Rust Reformer on metal surfaces as a primer. And whoa, whoa, whoa! Blue! What happened to the Hunter Green, man? If you've been following me long enough, you know that I like Hunter Green. Like, a lot. Well, this project is for a friend, and his favorite color is navy blue. I guess there really is no accounting for taste. Now, as the bases are all drying, I'll prep the frogs. For the best performance of a plane, you really want the iron to sit as flat as possible on the face of the frog, so it's also a good idea to lap the face of the frogs. The number 3 frog still had the original milling marks, but they came out really easy with this wet and dry. Just want to watch out for the adjustment lever when you do this. It's going to be a lot easier if I don't have to tape up these pins and these yokes, so I remove them for now. Prep the frogs. Tape the frogs and paint the frogs. And of course the number 1 adjustment wheel. So as that paint dries, I'll get to work on these lever caps. As you can see, I was testing out some bluing solution on these. I ended up deciding against it, so I'm just going to clean them up, get rid of all these scratch marks. And it wasn't too bad. I just worked my way up through some grits up to 400. I think this off-white will end up pairing really well with blue. For some reason I thought I only needed to tape one side of these levers, but all the overspray came off with a buffer. Pretty shiny. You can tell that the number 3 lever cap was nickel plated. You can see where it wore down a bit on some of the edges. I guess I could have replated it, but I'm not going to worry about it. It's not like this is my mechanics, for heaven's sakes. Looks good. The blue looks good against the polished iron. That there is just a smudge. Nothing permanent. Time for the chip breakers. This first one, the number 5, is interesting. I kind of like it. I'm going to keep some of the pitting. I honestly think it looks cool. Though the pitting on the edge of the chip breaker will be an issue functionally, and that's why I'm filling it in with some good old JB weld. The chip breaker has a major function for the plane overall. The shape and how it's positioned on the iron helps guide the shavings out. If the front of the chip breaker is not smooth enough, then the plane will be prone to clogging. Now, I'll check the breakers for square. The number 3 could use some work. Looks better. Now I'll clean the edge of the chip breaker so they sit nice and flush on the iron. Give them a quick buff, and not bad. Now for the number 1 chip breaker cap thing. Getting rid of this casting grit is just an aesthetic choice. I'm going to try my hand at a mirror polish. I think it'll look really nice. To do that, I'll start with a file, then 80 grit hand sand, then 120 orbital, then 320, 600, 800, 1500, 2000, buffing stick, and some polish. Honestly, for me, not bad. Mirror polishing is not my forte. You can definitely see some remnant of the scratches from the lower grits, but it's good enough for me. Handle time. I'm going to start by getting rid of whatever is currently covering the wood. Looks like some old varnish and paint. A sharp knife does wonders. You may have noticed this handle was missing a bit of the top. I intend on fixing that, so first thing is to make a nice flat surface to glue a transplant. I make a template with another number 5 handle I have on hand and use that to gauge the size I need. Some glue, a clamp, and it's ready to carve. Whoops. I end up using this belt sander for most of the shaping. I get enough safety conscious commentators that I turn the camera on myself to show that I'm wearing a mask. See? I'm a little safe. A mask and some safety squints. Just some touch-ups and it's looking good. Though, I could have done better on the color matching. The original wood took me by surprise and ended up being more red than I expected. Looks like you're gonna need a longer drill there. There you go. The number 3 handle was in good condition, so I sand both these pieces together through the various grits. The number 5 knob was not in good shape. It literally fell apart. But a bit of glue will make it stronger than ever. The bottom of this knob is going to need to be glued up as well before I can add a piece for the missing section.
Silly little bean.
After gluing the transplant on, I shape it roughly with a coping saw, some files, then essentially lay the new profile on my drill press. And I take advantage of this opportunity and sand both the knobs up to 320 grit. The cute little number 1 knob was really easy. I just did it on the orbital sander. Now, I'm usually a stickler on using the natural wood color, but I think this little knob would stand out too much from this being a set and all. So I use these coloring pens to match a dark rosewood color. And I do the same thing for the number 5 knob. It's below time. Oh yeah, nice, looking good. I love me some rosewood handles, though I'm not too sure on this number 5, not sure if it's really rosewood. Either way, it's pretty. Okay, finish line is in sight. Last thing to do is brass up the brass. I'm going to use my orbital sander to sand the heads of the nuts up to 2000 and finish it off on the buffing wheel. I found it pretty helpful to screw the nuts on the threaded handle bolts while using the buffing wheel. Nice, and last but not least, we come to the irons. I check each for square. That's the number 1. Ooh, number 3 is a bit off. And number 5 is pretty good. Okay, to reprofile these, I'll need to get pretty aggressive. So I start out with 80 grit. I shouldn't have to ever go this aggressive again if these are taken care of. I like to use this little sharpening guide when reprofiling. I make a bunch of passes, and I look or feel for the burr. It's really hard to see, but it's really easy to feel. Once you feel a burr on the flat side of your iron, you know that the angle you're sharpening to has gone all the way to the edge. And by the way, I'm sharpening these at a 25-degree angle, and after each grit, I also take a pass on the flat side of the iron. Now I end up doing all these together. I don't know if you need to see this 3 times over, but I end up going all the way through 2000 grit. Oh, a bit too much glue has accumulated on my piece of countertop there. I can always remove it with lacquer thinner though. Not a big deal. Whoa, that was a lot of sharpening. And of course some leather and compound to finish it off. I am very happy how these turned out. Very sharp on that plastic. Very, very sharp. Nice. Finally, everything is looking great, and it's time to put it all together. And you know what? I think I'll do something new, and not talk. Do the whole satisfying restoration assembly bit. Let me know what you prefer. Enjoy. Well, that was pretty nice. Well, maybe I should not talk more often. I don't know. Now, I did want to jump in and explain that I am lapping one more time with 220 just to clean up the bottoms, make them extra smooth. Looks really nice. Okay, so for the next bit, I'm going to use these planes and I'm going to give my reaction and play-by-play as I'm using them. I go into my own technique, and you know, I act like I know what I'm talking about, but I'm just going off my own experience. There are many, many others that have a much better understanding of how to use these planes, and if you do, go ahead and share in the comments. I really don't mind feedback. Now, if you'd rather not watch the play-by-play and just skip ahead to the beauty shots, then go to this timestamp.
Alright, they are done. Very excited. They look good. Now I do want to use them before I send them off to my friend. Can't restore a hand plane and not show how it works. So the best thing I can think of is resurfacing this tabletop a little bit. It's just been looking a little worse for wear. I could use for a little touch up. The way that you want to use a hand plane, or at least what I like to do, is I like to make sure that the iron is nice and straight. It's coming out evenly. It's in the middle. It's not touching either side of the body of the plane. So what I do, of course, I want the plane to be cutting it evenly. Stick it out a little bit. I can tell that on the right side right here, it's sticking out a little bit more than the left. So I'll use this adjuster to just make sure that it's all coming out of the mouth the same height. I just do that by feel, and I tend to get pretty good results with that. I'll back it up basically all the way out, so I know it's not going to cut, right? Obviously. And then just bring it in ever so slightly. Yeah, see, I just got my first cut there. Nice. First shaving from this restore plane. So I really don't want to go that deep on this workbench. I just want to take the very minor surface off. Nice. Getting some pretty good ribbons. Now, the way that I was told that you should hold this plane, or at least one of the things that Rex Kruger says, is you're not supposed to be getting all 4 fingers on the handle here. It's a 3-finger handle, and you have your pointer finger sticking out. I think people have different opinions as far as bringing the plane back. I think if you do lift it up a little bit, it saves the edge of your plane a little bit. This is working really well. I'm really happy with it. So I'm happy. But you can just see the difference obviously from this side over here. Right, so here's a bit of a closer shot. I'm going to take a little bit more off. I mean, it's just the most minute shavings. I could go deeper, but you risk a little bit more tear out. This thing is so sharp, I'm not getting any tear out whatsoever. And sometimes I do on this bench. Even though oh wow, look at that. Even though the grain pattern is so tight, I still get a little bit of tear out when I come across some parts a little bit deeper. And the shavings look pretty even. I mean, you really know when a plane is tuned in and flat and sharp when it's not tearing out like other planes would. I mean, it's not tearing out, it's just making it smoother. All that tear out's gone. Okay, let's check out this smoothing plane. Just like before, I want to just check how it's coming out of the throat. It's a little high on this side right here, and a bit too much of a gap right here compared to here. So I'm going to back it out a little bit and readjust the iron. A little bit more. This is where some OCD comes into play. Just even it out. For me, the important thing isn't that it's even, along the throat necessarily, but just even coming out of the throat. And that feels pretty good. So I'm going to back it back out. So same thing. It's comfortable enough. I mean, even sometimes on these smaller planes, I might do rock on kind of deal, but it's a 3-finger handle. Whoa. That was a little too deep, too fast. There we go. So I'm getting tear out right here. A lot of times you can just go the other way. That helps. Looks really good. Now, I'm not going to say that I'm a hand plane expert. I'm not by any means. Now, this block plane is a little bit trickier to set. For the most part, you have to screw this just slightly to where you can manipulate it yourself a little bit by hand. And then once you know it's coming out kind of flat and even, you can tighten it down. And if you need to put it in a little bit, you can knock the iron a bit. I use block planes a lot of times for chamfers. I mean, yeah, you can use larger planes for chamfers, but to me they seem to come out a little bit better when I use smaller block planes. That looks good. If you don't want to chip out your edge, you just kind of want to come at it at an angle downward, and that usually will be pretty easy on end grain chamfers. Now the other nice thing about block planes is they have a lower set angle. That also can help with areas of tear out. So let's see if this can do anything with this trouble area. Ooh. Wow. There you go. It's better. Now, yes, I use them, and yes, I will at least strop them again on the leather before sending to my friend. So this is all my extra number 6. Got a lot of it. But it's like apple butter. Rub it in. It keeps pretty good. I'll just rub this in and then wipe it off. I need to treat this bench a little bit better. I've been refinishing it way too many times. And you know, people say, well, if you're a really good craftsman, you know, you take care of your stuff. And I mean, I want to be better at that. Just overall taking care of my tools and things that I make. But then, you know, it's also called a workbench, right? There's the other side of that. And I mean, I can't imagine, especially if you make like a really pristine workbench, right? Out of like maple and everything else. What kind of lengths do you have to go through to just never ding it up? It's like, are you really using it to its full capacity? I don't know. I think there's a little bit of nuance there. I don't think it's, you know, one side and just meant for work, so it doesn't matter how ugly it gets. But again, I don't think you should treat this like some kind of, I don't know, plated glass, you know? I don't know if that necessarily makes a good craftsman, making sure that absolutely everything is pristine. I follow this Facebook page specifically regarding workbenches, and there's one guy on there that makes workbenches for a living, and I mean really nice ones, really good looking workbenches. And he made one for himself recently, and he mentioned the first thing that he did after it was all made and pristine. I mean, this thing looked like the Rolls Royce of workbenches. So the first thing that he did was take a hammer and he said he either hit it or dropped the hammer on top of the workbench just to get over the fact that it is a tool to be worked on and it's not some kind of Ferrari to, I don't know what kind of car, you know, the friend of Ferris Bueller's dad had in his garage, but.
The 1961 Ferrari 250 GT California.
You know, these planes look really good individually, but there's just something special about a set piece, you know? They just look really good together. I'm glad I went with that polished cap on the number 1. I think it ties it all in. I really hope my friend likes them. You know, if these were hunted green, I'd probably have second thoughts about giving them away. Thanks for watching.